Okay, so we have a few people here, so welcome everybody to another edition of Live from the, today we are live from the Baler. So if you tuned in last week, last Tuesday, we were actually going back and forth here in very straight lines with the swather cutting hay. And today we are going and taking those nice straight lines and we're making them into little circles. So let's get a few more people on here. We will jump out and go take a look at the baler. But we have a few things to talk about today. I've got lots of questions that people have sent to me, and I've actually had to go and do some research and re-educate myself because I actually did go to college and learned a few things at college, and I had to go back and relearn them because this whole nitrogen situation is quite complicated and people keep asking and keep asking about it. So I'm going to keep researching and researching and researching and keep spelling it back out for you guys to try to educate you, I guess, as to what is going on so people can maybe understand why we have such an uproar, especially across the pond, with all these governments thinking it's a great idea to quash nitrogen fertilizers and that thinking there won't be any consequences from that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. We got a few other little things to talk about here. I actually took notes today. And so not today, I took them for today so that I don't have to try to switch between my live here on my phone and my notes app, because that squishes broadcasts and shuts them off, and I don't really want to have that happen. So we're going to try and see if we can actually successfully do a broadcast without shutting it off. So while I'm tying up bales, then I will check my notes to see what we're going to do. So one of the questions I was asked this past week is, what do farmers do on rainy days? Because of course this broadcast was supposed to be done on Tuesday, which is when I'm trying to do these on a regular basis, and it didn't happen because it rained. So rainy days are supposed to be that we, relax and don't really do a lot, but nowadays it seems that we just do things that needed to have been done on other days on rainy days because we're not out operating equipment. So on my rainy day, I spent some time in the house, spent some time actually working on the baler, getting it ready to go, working on the swather, cleaning up the shop and getting ready for to be able to get going this week. Hello, Mr. Schneidmiller. Nice to see you again. I had another comment here, I think, from Kaylee, I believe. I'm trying to read while bumping. Good afternoon from Point Edward, Ontario. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. So yeah, rainy days, they're not all they're cracked up to be. It'd be nice if we could just sit and do nothing and sit in the house and drink coffee or tea or whatever and kind of just relax, but it doesn't seem to happen all the time. But that also said, we don't get a whole lot of rainy days out here. This June, I think it was, and we had our first real rain that was like an inch. I actually just stood and watched out the window because I forgot what rains were actually like. Like, I'm not kidding. It'd been 8 months since the last actual rain event, so I didn't remember, what they smelled like, what they looked like, or like, oh, I gotta go put downspouts on and whatnot. What is your moisture content? Dryish. I have a moisture meter for hay in the shop. I have actually never used it. My dad has used it. We most just go out, grab from the very bottom of the swath, and pull it out. And if it is any kind of serious bit damp, then we wait. But otherwise, we go. So we had a bit of dew this morning, so I've been out here for about an hour and a half, baling so far today. But yeah, not entirely sure what the moisture content is to tell you the truth. I'm just kind of new to the haying process on our farm, so I don't even know what number I'd be looking for because this hasn't really been my gig for a while. Grump is here. Hello, Grump. Nice to see you have joined. We're going to be talking about nitrogen here in a little bit. Okay, enjoying a rainy day here in Ontario. Got our haylage done last week. Awesome, good for you guys. This is only my second day baling. We got about 70 bales made. Hopefully we'll have, by the time it's all said and done here in a couple of weeks, we'll have probably 600-ish, I think. Hopefully that's Annie, hello. So hopefully I have about 600-ish bales by the time we're all said and done between green feed and alfalfa. There's a chance I might even make some straw bales, but I kind of doubt it. Am I sounding okay, everybody? Because last time I know that my microphone wasn't turned on, or I wasn't talking to my phone, I guess, and I sound like I was in a bit of a barrel for a bit. So if you can hear all kinds of tractor noises, then my microphone is not working properly. What are your thoughts about the farmers in Europe? We will get there. We will get there actually very soon. We're going to talk about nitrogen first before we get talking about them. Clear and loud. Excellent. Okay, so you can hear me. Fantastic. Okay, wrapping another bale up. Okay, we are actually, I think, because we got probably the most people we're going to have here, so we are going to jump out and we're going to take a look at the machine that I am driving. So I'm going to take you out of my swanky holder here. There's my very swanky high-tech holder. I built that myself, except for the magnetic mount. That is what holds my phone. So here's our baler. We will jump out as soon as that little arrow slides down to the bottom. Both twines have stopped rolling, so we will open the end gate. And we'll kick that bale out and shut the baler. We'll turn off PTO, throttle back, and let's go outside. Greetings from northern Manitoba. Glad you could join us. Okay. So this is our baling outfit. This is Mad Max. He's only been in one video, if I remember correctly. Back in the winter when I was still doing chill pills, I did one in him while feeding cows. And this is our baler. It is quite old. Well, not quite old, I guess. It is, I'm going to say early 2000s, something along that lines. My dad actually bought it brand new. So he's been on the farm its entire life. We don't make a whole lot of hay here. Like I said, we're only making, there were times that Dad was making 1,500 bales a year, but now we're only making like anywhere from 500 to 800 kind of thing. So it's going to be around here a little while. Need two hands to get the door open. So ground balers are kind of complicated when you think, but once you understand the basic function of it, it's not really all that big of a deal. So we'll just open the twine box. And so we have one primary drive there that drives the rest of the baler via a bunch of chains and things. I actually drew a diagram so you can actually see how all of this works without me having to stand here while it drives, on its own. So we have 6 bales of twine on here. Ooh, that's loose, might blow away. We have 6 bales of twine in here, and we can get about 140, anywhere from about 80 to 150 bales, depending on how much twine we put on each bale. So I actually made myself. Actually, I made you guys a little diagram here. If I can flip the page. There's my swanky, amazing 2-scale drawings. So we have the baler. So we're going to look at this picture first over here. So this is what the baler looks like when it is empty. It has no bale in it. You can see the tire we were sitting on top of here. The front tire on the pickup is right there. And the hitch is right here. So the hay comes in the pickup right here. And it starts in this tiny little area here. This black line that goes all the way around, that is actually the baler belts. And so the bale starts in this little space here. As this is the starter roll down to the bottom, it carries the weight of the entire bale. So all of the hay comes in this little tiny gap right here, which is actually about 8 inches tall. And so it starts to form a little bit of a circle. It puts pressure on these belts, deflects them in a little bit, forms a bit of a circle. And as soon as it starts to turn, then we can get going. They're sometimes kind of hard to start, especially grassy bales. They don't like to get fed in here very well. They don't like to start turning. They just like to pack in without turning. And then we get all kinds of problems. But once a bale is turning, it grows and grows and grows like this. And all the slack comes out of these rollers here. They move up and let all the slack from the belts come around the bale like this. And once we have a full bale, the gate opens. The bale falls out the back like this. Whoops. It is a little bit windy out here. Hopefully you can't hear that. The bale falls out the back, the slack comes back down, and we have an empty chamber, and we can start all over again. So that's my little sketchy 2-scale drawing. I think I may have missed a roller or two, but that definitely gets the gist of it along. The belts are about, I think they're 30 feet long or so, all wrapped up in there, and they're very, very strong. Like really strong, because there's about the cylinder that puts pressure on the bale has about 1,600 psi in it when we are actually supposed to form the bale. So right now with the bale size and the bale density, these are mostly straight alfalfa, and they're going to be about 12 to 1,300 pounds. If we make the absolute max size we can, I think these bales get to be 6 feet tall and 5 and a smidgen feet wide. And if we pack them as tightly as we could, which is like taking out bearings and stretching belts, then you're going to be probably looking at 1,700 pounds. And if we tried to make silage bales with it, we could probably get them over that 2,000 pound range, but probably would break the baler if we tried to accomplish that. Okay, we'll come back into air-conditioned paradise here. So this is the cab of the tractor. There's not really a whole lot to look at here. We have the steering wheel. We have the shuttle shifter up here. We have the baler monitor here, which really doesn't do a whole lot for us. When the bale is running, we have these monitors here. They're just little bar diagrams. And once the bale starts turning, there's little tabs inside the bale chamber that actually depress, and they show us the bale shape. Actually, we'll open the end gate. We'll go back there and take a look inside the chamber here in a minute. So this also, from this, we can tell it how much twine we want wrapped on the bales, and it will beep at us when the bale is full and it started the wrapping process. And if we have errors with wrapping, we can manually wrap a bale or try to recut the twine if it doesn't cut. Just use this one lever here, opens and closes the gate. This one raises and lowers the pickup. 4-speed gear shift with the 4-speed power shift right there, and manual throttle, and the PTO lever, and swanky phone holder, of course air conditioning, and just installed that 2 days ago. Bluetooth decks are fantastic things. So we are going to, because we're going to go under the baler, so we are going to shut off the tractor because I have no desire to get squished. And we're going to go back and take a look in the bale chamber. So before going under anything hydraulic, either manually lock it or lock the hydraulics. There, it cannot come down. So this is inside the bale chamber. If you remember all those rollers that I had, this is the starter roller. This is the one that has the weight of the bale on it all the time. And those belts come up on an angle from originate right there and come down in a straight line to right behind the starter roller. And this in here is the area where the bale actually physically gets started. So this baler is starting to kind of worn out. So these bars are getting kind of smooth and worn. So we added some chunks of rebar on here to help it grip the bale to hopefully get them started better. Because when bales don't start very well, the belts actually start to deflect and slide to the side. Then they twist and they break their splices and everything just gets to be a mess. And to make sure that the end gate doesn't come down on the bale, we have the kicker. And I can actually stand on it and bring it all the way to the ground. So it doesn't actually do a fantastic job of pushing the bale off, but it prevents the bale from rolling back into the baler and getting in the way of the gate. But on some hills, I still have to let the bale out and pull ahead. Got a question here. Hope I haven't missed many questions here. Sorry, guys. Things I did not know. Now that I've been picking stones for a few days, where do the rocks keep coming from as a field is planted with something every year? Okay, so the rocks actually, from my understanding, they actually come up from underground, slowly keep working their way up. And so you can, if you have land that has rocks, inevitably you're going to keep having rocks. No matter how many of them you pick, they're always going to come back. It's just going to be something you constantly have to take care of. Some land has a lot of rocks and some don't have very many. Yes, Grump, that is how they come up. They come up with the frost. So if you bury rocks below your frost line, they should not come back up. But if they're above your frost line, they will slowly migrate upwards. So you'll never actually be rock free. If you have rocks on your land, you're always going to have rocks on your land because they're always going to come up at one pace or another. So that is the inside of the bale chamber. There's one other adjustment that we probably can't see very well from here. Up inside of there is a pressure cylinder, and there's a relief valve on there that we can actually use to adjust the pressure to how dense that it makes the bales. Right here we have the pressure gauge for how high a pressure that we actually have on the bale itself when it's forming. And up here we have 2 slide gauges. So this one tells me that the latch for the gate is open, and this one tells me this one's supposed to tell me how much bale is in there, but just with the geometry of the cables, when the gate is all the way up, of course, it reads all the way up as well. And this is the twine indicator here. It starts at the top, which is the center of the bale, and slowly works its way out to the edge and then recuts. So the twine arms here actually are, this is a twine arm right here. It is pivoted in the center of the baler back here. You can see the twine that runs through it. It is currently pinched in the knife back there. The knife opens up to cut the twine. And so when it goes to wrap a bale, it opens a knife, and this arm swings down right into the back, right here, where all the product is flowing through into the bale, grabs the twines and starts wrapping. And so what the arm slowly does is it just waits a certain number of seconds and then moves over a couple more inches and keeps doing that until it's taken twine all the way across the bale, back into the knife, closes the knife, cuts the twine, and then we can kick the bale out. So that's really about all there is to the baler. It's not really an overly complicated machine. There are a lot of bearings to it, and so occasionally when I'm running, I will actually stop the machine. I'll stop driving while it's running with the window open and make sure that the baler is upwind of me, and actually just wait a few seconds and smell. Your nose will often tell me when you have a bad bearing. You'll smell it before it starts a fire. That said, I personally have had this baler on fire twice. My dad's had it on fire a few times, but that's why we have a water fire extinguisher, the big silver thing sitting on there. That is a water fire extinguisher, and that's why we keep it on the baler, because then we can put the baler out if it's on fire. How often do you check your bearings? My neighbor had a baler fire because his bearings were done. Yep, we just talked about that. I check for smell about every half an hour, and then every day when I grease in the morning, I go back and check. If I'm baling for a long time, like if I'm baling for 10 hours straight, I'll get out once or twice and crawl over the machine and check the ones that we've had trouble with. Okay, I think we're caught up on comments there. I think. If I've missed anybody, please let me know. So we're going to turn the PTO on. We're going to close the gate. I'm not really that out of shape. Just walking around while trying to talk all the time takes a lot of breath out of you. So we have to get started. We move quickly with a low PTO speed to try and get as much material into the baler as possible because our swaths are not really heavy. Oh, and if you're not paying attention, you can even plug the pickup. But our swaths aren't really that heavy. These balers were not really made with tiny Western Canadian swaths in mind. They were more of designed for places that had a little bit of better hay crops. So we have to drive quickly with slow baler speed to try to pack a whole bunch of stuff into it so that it'll actually start the bale. So my indicators came on and I watched the pressure gauge jump up, so I know that we're actually making a bale. I cannot read the comments on my phone while I'm driving. It just shakes too much and they're about 3 feet from my head, and my eyes are good, but not that good. So when I stop to tie a bale, I will scroll through comments and see if I can read them. So I know I've got a couple there, but I can't see them just yet. So be patient with me. Those of you who've joined us somewhat recently, we are going to talk about the whole nitrogen situation. We're going to talk about why we use nitrogen fertilizers, why they are critical for our modern ag production, and we're going to talk about the big problems with them. We're going to talk about the perceived environmental problems with them, and we're going to talk about what we as farmers can actually do about this situation. Because yes, the nitrogen fertilizing is a problem. How it's being handled, of course, by governments is abysmal, but there's a lot more to the story than meets the eye. So we will get into the ins and outs of nitrogen here in a little bit. That's going to be the largest portion of our live here today, as we're going to be talking about nitrogen quite a bit. Now, what qualifies me to talk about nitrogen is I did go to college. I have a diploma in agriculture, in crop technology, actually it is, and I have now been actively farming and involved in farming for more than 15 years. I've been actively involved in decision-making processes here on the farm and in some of the agronomic understandings of things for about 10 years or so. And I have been making the majority, I would say, well, not majority, but a good portion of the decisions when it comes to fertilizer on our farm here for the past couple of years. Okay. Okay, so we got the bearings. Sorry, we got the rocks, and then we got the bearing. Oh, hang on. There we go. Yeah, got the bearings. And you're welcome for showing you how that works. That's part of how this goes. How many acres do you have? What is your primary, crops or livestock? So we have about 7,500 acres total on the farm. About just shy of 4,000 of that is in cultivation, meaning that we grow cash crops on it every year. And the remaining acres is for cows. So we've got about 3,800 acres in crop production in one form or another. And then, oh, she's running away to the side on us on the hill. And then we have 120-ish beef cows that we calve out from year to year. So grain is probably, depending on the year, between 70 and 85% of our farm's income is through our cash crops, and a small portion of that then is from the cattle. But the reason we like to keep both is because the cattle can actually be of a significant benefit to our cropping system if they're managed properly. And also there are some years when grain prices are really, really crappy, but cattle prices are really, really good. So it gives us a little bit of diversity, as well as some years when cropping is really terrible, like say 2016 or 2018, when we had a lot of snow during the harvest season. The grain that we could not get, we were able to feed to the cows. They were able to go walk around in the fields and take care of and utilize what would otherwise have been wasted if we did not have them. So we were able to turn that wasted grain into an asset that we were able to sell and take the pressures off our pasture at the same time. Now I believe I saw somebody ask a question further up, and I'm sorry, I can only see 2 comments at a time, and scrolling is kind of difficult while driving. But I believe someone asked a question about selling bales. So we don't really like to make hay. We don't like to cut hay. We'd much rather our cows, because they have 4 legs, so they might as well walk out, cut their own hay, bale their own hay, haul it to the yard, and haul it out themselves, and then spread their own manure. And what I mean by that is they have 4 legs. They can just go and eat it while it's out here, if things are managed properly, of course, not all the time. So we try to put up only the hay that we need, and we try to otherwise manage the cows in such a way that they can take care of most of their own food needs by walking around and doing it themselves. We do have a neighbor who is very, very good at establishing and perpetrating alfalfa crops, and he actually, a good portion of his farming income is actually making and selling hay, but that's not a enterprise we really want to get into. We would much rather focus on our cropping side and just make the hay that we need. So That said, we also haven't had to buy very much feed. I'm trying to think the last time was that we bought feed. It would have been a very long time ago. And I kind of want to attribute that to the good management of my father and my grandfather when it came to the cow herd versus the amount of food that we had. So that's been very nice not have to buy any, but we most just produce for ourselves. The way things look this year, we are going to have enough. We're not going to have to worry about things this winter. We're going to get probably about 200 alfalfa bales, and then we'll get a few hundred green feed bales and some grass to go with it. Okay. I'll have to load some 4x4 grass bales. Let's see if I can read. Perfect green and no rain. Nice. That is awesome. Okay. Bearing usually checked beginning of season, end of season, and check daily. Yes, that is correct. What is temperature there today? It's about 32 Celsius outside. Not sure what that is in American silly temperatures, where 32 is 0 and 220 something is boiling. I'm not sure what 32 Celsius is in that. It's not cool, that's for sure. I do like being in my air-conditioned tractor. I do better in the cold than in the heat. It's actually probably a little bit too dry really to be baling, but I also don't really like baling in the middle of the night, which is what we've been having to do the past few years. Ever experiment? Why do they keep doing this? Ever experiment with bale grazing for smaller pastures? Yes, we have done some bale grazing. It's been a few years since we've done bale grazing. Because bale grazing is the least efficient way to utilize a bale, or probably the least efficient, or one of the least efficient ways. We're usually trying to maximize the amount of feed that we have, and we also have low quality and high quality feed. We usually tub grind most of our feed, and that way you can mix good and bad stuff together. And so the saying that I have is a tub grinder forgives a multitude of sins. So if you've got hay with a bit of mold in it, and you've got some nice alfalfa, put the two together, and voila, cows will eat it, no problem. So we haven't done bale grazing in quite a while because there are often much more efficient ways to utilize our feed. Do you make any small square bales? Go away. I do not like those words. Those words sound like an awful lot of work. I don't like work that isn't done in a tractor. No, we do not make any small squares anymore. Back when I was in 4-H, we did go buy a small square baler, and we did make some square bales for because we had quite the sizable 4-H herd, and we're going to quite a few shows and stuff. So we did make some square bales. Back when my dad was my age and younger, that was how they fed the entire herd, was with square bales. They'd haul many, many square bales a day out of the loft of the barn and go and feed the herd. But no, we don't do small squares anymore. They're actually very uncommon in this area because this area is very poor marginal hay land, actually poor marginal land to begin with, period. So you don't see a lot of small farms out here that would utilize small square bales. You're mostly seeing larger operations that require tractors in order to keep up with the volume that they need to run in order to actually make a profit. So you'll see the odd square bale every now and then. Some farmers might do them every couple of years and make a few just to have in their barn just because they're easier to handle. But en masse, you're not going to see a whole lot of square bales out here. Okay, we're going to be, we're not wrapping this one up for a little bit yet. Okay, there's one that I comment there that I cannot read just yet. So, do you carry fire extinguisher for baler fires? Yes, I do. And the person whose comment is above it, I will get to you, but I couldn't read that whole thing because of bumps. Sorry. Yes, there's a fire extinguisher. You can actually kind of see it. It's a little silver thing right behind me there. It carries 2 gallons of water with 125 psi of air on top of it. And that fire extinguisher has saved this baler at least twice just in my operating time. We had a couple bearings go out in the top. And having a little bit of pressurized water there has really saved our bacon a few times. So we actually carry pressurized water fire extinguishers on pretty much all of our summer equipment. So a swather has it, the baler has it, the mower has it, and then when we go harvesting, of course, we have them on the combines as well as the fire trucks follow the combines around because we have an absolute crack fire department here nearby, one of the best rural fire departments you will find in North America. Incredibly well equipped, very well trained, all volunteers. A very, very good equipment, and they specialize in ag and grass fires. But their response time, even though they're really, really good, is 30 minutes at absolute best, sometimes 40, depending on where you are. And if you've got a good breeze and things are dry, a fire can literally get several miles in that time. So we make sure that we carry our own fire extinguishers all the time. And at harvest, the water trucks never get more than a half mile from the combines, just because even if you can't save the machine, you might be able to save someone's house. So we do make sure that we are responsible when it comes to fires. That, of course, also means that we take care of our machinery. We try to watch out for bearings that might cause fires, but you can't be omnipotent and everywhere at once. So you can't always know. Okay. Thank you. I try to be a good teacher. I should do talks in schools, maybe make some kids want to farm. Hey, if somebody invites me, I will happily go and talk to kids in schools. So we're just wrapping a bale here. It only takes a few seconds to wrap a bale. Well, more than a few seconds, I guess. It takes a little while, a little while to wrap it. It gives me a moment to kind of get my head cleared. Okay, you should make videos to teach this in 4-H in schools and to young children. Well, that's part of why I started continuing doing this stuff after I left Ottawa, because I realized it had a bit of a market, so to speak, a bit of an audience. And to be totally honest, most of my audience, according to Facebook stats anyways, is women between the ages of like 25 and 60. That's like 70% of my audience is females in that age. And so most of those females in that age have children. So I figured, well, if I'm going to try to make a difference in today's society, maybe it will be by educating people as to what's actually happening out here. I know a lot of people are doing that, try to educate people as to where their food comes from. But I've seen a lot of farmers try to do it in such a way that what I'm doing is right, and you need to understand that I'm doing what's best for me, and that's just the way it is. Don't tell me that what I'm doing is wrong. I need to tell you that what I'm doing is right. And I don't like that. I think we need to more of establish relationships and understanding between the consumers and the consumers and the producers, that we're doing what we're needing to do to try to survive and to make a profit, continue doing what we're doing, and that we don't always understand the long-term consequences of some of the things that we're doing. And sometimes we do understand the consequences, but there aren't really any options to get away from those, specifically the fertilizer thing we'll be talking about soon. So for consumers to understand that we are doing the best that we can, and a lot of us understand that what we're doing is not sustainable and we need to change. For consumers to understand that, I think, is very important. So I'm trying to set up my channel here in such a way that we can really get consumers and producers to be able to come to the same table, to understand each other better, and to be able to work together to try to make this a little bit of a better place and make our production and our food system a little more robust and less separated than it currently is. Yeah, there's a few comments that have gone through here since I started babbling. So I'm going to wrap up this bale. We'll try and get to those comments as well. Again, we are going to be talking about nitrogen here later. That's kind of the main focus, what we're going to be talking about, because I got a lot of questions relating to what the farmers, of course, in Europe are doing, and why is nitrogen even needed? It's not in the photosynthesis process, so why do we even need it? And what's wrong with the fertilizers? And what we can do about it. So we're going to kind of touch on all of that. I actually had to go and do some research here. I spent about an hour yesterday on and off while baling and swathing and whatnot, re-educating myself on the ins and outs of how the nitrogen cycle works and why exactly governments are going after nitrous oxide and whatnot, so that I can actually try to convey some of that to you. So we'll be getting to that in a little while, but for now we're going to keep we're going to answer a few more questions. I got a few more things written in my book in front of me here, and answer some more questions about haying. If you guys got some more questions about the haying process, no one's asked me why I'm wiggling back and forth like a drunken idiot. So we'll wait for somebody to ask about that, and then we'll talk about that. Okay. Thank you for telling me that I'm creative. I like to think that sometimes too. Give instructions for a living. My patience is, yeah. Sean, that's thank you. I am warm in here. It's kind of sweaty. Wow. Okay. We cannot live without you farmers doing a great job showing explaining life in the farm. Thank you. You're very welcome. Okay, CO2 and nitrates are plant food. Yes, they definitely are. Why are they going after it? Like I said, I will get there. Remember, retaining an audience is telling them you're going to give them something that they want later, and then making them suffer through some of the things they maybe don't want in order to get there. And that's what I'm doing, is making sure that people are going to hang around and watch for a little while so we can answer some more cool questions, because you guys always have cool questions. And then we'll get to the meat and the potatoes of this broadcast here in a little while. We'll go over the nitrogen thing. So hang on for a little bit and we will get there, because you have some more low-level topics I have written down. And of course, you guys always have your questions. So we will go over that. So the bale wraps evenly. Yes. I actually have to make the bale evenly. If I just drove in a straight line on one side or the other, my bales would literally fall over when they came out. They'd be cone shaped, because the swath that we're picking up, I'll maybe turn the camera around in a bit here. The swath that we're picking up is only like 2 feet wide. So in order to try to make a 5 foot wide bale, the baler doesn't spread it out. It really takes it in, stuffs it in the front, and keeps rolling. So if I don't make the bale evenly and pass the swath from side to side, the bale will be either soft on the edges and hard in the middle, which the twines will slip off and then it won't be a bale anymore. Or the bale will be cone shaped and it will be sloped to one side or the other. Same thing, twines will slide off, it won't be a bale anymore. So bales that are not perfectly rectangular, yes, a round item, rectangular. If they're not perfectly rectangular, they don't pick up with the tractor very well. They don't sit on the bale wagon very well. They do not stack or poop. And in any process you handle them, they're much more likely to fall apart and have the twines fall off if they're not perfectly rectangular. So we got to do a little bit of a wiggle here because we don't have a really big swath. In the places where the swaths are a lot heavier, I don't have to wiggle so bad. But yeah, you definitely couldn't be using a GPS to bale out here. So we're actually getting a pretty decent amount of hay off of this. We established this hay field here last summer, or tried to, I guess, in the middle of a ridiculous drought and heat. And so this is our first real cutting that we've taken off of this. It's about 90 acres out here, and we're hoping to see somewhere around 120, 140 bales would be just fantastic. It was a little bit dry to start off this year. Like quite dry to start off this year. So we weren't, there's actually alfalfa was going backwards until we had some more rain. We're probably not going to get a second cut off of this. If you cut alfalfa too late, you can really put it backwards because it has to put energy into its roots so it has something to grow from next year because alfalfa is perennial. So you need to make sure the alfalfa has time to replenish its root system before it has to go dormant for the winter. So if you cut it too late, you can actually do it harm and it won't start as well in the spring, or it just may actually outright die over the winter. So we're going to be really careful about how late we do a cutting. So it's quite unlikely that we'll get a second cutting. We very rarely get second cuttings out here. We just don't have the moisture to support it. So it's not something that happens very commonly out here. Okay. Okay. I used to think that GPT made you use all that stuff produced, like imposing it on your federal rules. Yes, no, that's not the case. So we will get to that in a little bit. Okay, make sure you drink your water. You need to be hydrated. Yes, I've got a gallon jug there on the floor. I will be using that. Okay, why round bales instead of square bales? That is a fantastic question. So the progression of haying in the prairies anyways started with guys just cutting prairie wool, really raking it into big bundles and then storing it in the haymow of their barn or in large piles and then feeding it to their cows. But then once people started having more and more cows, the space that you need for uncompressed hay is enormous. So then in order to make the process easier, they started to have stationary square balers. And so they would take hay to the balers, and the balers, which were attached to a steam engine at the time, would pack it into square bales that weighed, they might weigh 50, 60, 80 pounds, whatever they wanted them to weigh. And then you now have a large volume of hay in a small space. You can handle it easier, you can store it easier and everything. And then, of course, as farms continue to grow, people got really sick of handling small square bales because they would need hundreds and hundreds of them because a cow is going to need maybe 20 to 30 pounds a day. If a square bale only weighs 60 pounds, you can only get 2 cows per bale. So if you've got 100 cows, that's a freak ton of bales. So people didn't really want to spend their entire summer doing hay, so wanted to find better ways to do it. And so I believe that the big round bale came before the big square bale did. And so then people did round bales for a while. I know we've been making round bales my entire life. We've never gotten into square bales. It's all into big squares, sorry. It's always been, we went from little squares to big rounds. And so we've been making big rounds for years. And like I said, this baler we bought brand new. I think it was going to be an early 2000s model. Before I was really involved in farming, I was only 6 years old in 2000. So I wasn't really engaged or aware of a lot of things. And so we've had this baler its whole life, and it's probably going to be here another 10 years, I would imagine, unless it starts on fire. But so there's not really any reason to change to big squares because it involves getting a baler. Then it's going to involve possibly a different handling system because if you want to tub grind squares, they don't tub grind quite as well as round bales do. You got to stack them differently. How to haul them differently, and right now we have a trailer that self-unloads round bales, which makes it a much less labor-intensive process. You need less equipment to do it. So changing to big squares, although it would, the advantages of big squares though, sorry, I'll get to this in order to finish my first point. The advantages of big squares is you don't have to stop to wrap them. You have to stop and wrap a round bale, but a square baler, you just keep on trucking. That sucker wraps one bale at the back while it keeps forming another one in front of it. So you don't have to stop. So you can bale a lot faster. The problem, though, with big squares is they don't store as well as round bales do. Like a well-made round bale sitting out here will actually shed the volume of water and snow that we get. We store all of our hay outdoors. But a big square stack, unless they are stacked together, if they're just left out in the open and they get a good rain on them, water infiltrates them quite easily. And so unless you stack them, all of the bales will get water on them if you stack them, and of course the top bales get the most water, but the ones underneath aren't quite so bad. So they don't keep quite as long, and we'll be keeping bales sometimes for 5 years. Maybe even longer, because they will store literally just sitting out. So if you make them into mushroom stacks, so you got one standing on end like this and one on top of it like this, mushroom stack, the top one sheds water off of the bottom one, and you can keep both of them for quite a long time. So even though baling faster would be awesome, the storage is a bit of an issue for us, as well as transportation. Like I said, we have a self-unloading bale trailer, so to be able to just to pull into the yard, unload the trailer, and move on is really nice and convenient for us. We don't make a whole lot of hay. Like I said, we're only making a few hundred, 600-800 bales a year. We're not making thousands and thousands, so the speed difference isn't really worth it. And big square balers are very expensive. We probably need about $60,000, $80,000 to get into a decent big square baler, from my understanding, whereas this is already paid for and been paid for a while. So not really too much point in changing if we don't have to. Okay, we're going to take a minute here. I got a few comments I think I should scroll through. Okay. Have you heard of worm tea? Yes, I have. We will talk about compost tea in a bit when we get to nitrogen, actually, because it's actually related. And why wrapping it? Reusable plastics. Okay, so we're actually wrapping this in twine. We're not wrapping this in like a silage bale, like a silage wrap, or into a mauve wrap or something like that. We're just wrapping it in twine. The reason for wrapping it is because if we don't wrap it, it'll come apart. It'll come unraveled. It's highly compressed. Like I said earlier, is 1,500 psi on the cylinder that compresses the belts. So the bale is highly compressed. So if it's not twined, it will actually just come apart. Every time you pick it up, it'll shed pieces and big lumps, and it'll just make a mess everywhere that it goes, as well as soon as it comes uncompressed, it won't shed water anymore. So it has to stay tightly together, or it'll actually start to rot and water will get into it. So there are a lot of different ways to wrap bales. So we're using twine, which is the simplest way. Then there's a black netting, which is how we used to do it. These are all plastic-based products. And then there's mauve wrap, which is nearly waterproof, but not quite. And then there's actual silage wrap. So black netting and twine and the mauve wrap can all be done by regular round balers. That's not a problem. This baler is not capable of doing either net or mauve. It's only a twine baler. Some balers can do both. This one cannot. But then you need a special baler or a individual wrapper if you want to put silage wrap on bales. Now, recycled plastic, or sorry, single-use plastics in agriculture is one of my big grumps. I'm really, really grumpy at industry and how they just throw plastic away like crazy. They make their products so it's only single-use, and that's just plain irresponsible and dumb in my opinion. But the twine is it's unavoidable. There's nothing you can really do about it. You cannot reuse twine. Degrades in the sun. Mice chew it. You're not going to go and tie twine together. We need about 300 feet, I think I did the math on, 300 to 400 feet to wrap one bale. You're not going to go and get a bunch of 20-foot chunks and tie them together in order to get enough to do a bale. And you're not going to take the time to wrap it all back up in a spool nice and tightly like what's in the baler in order to make that work. It's just simply not practical. I can buy one of those balls of twine for about 25 bucks. It has 28,000 feet in it. You're not going to be able to do anything like that, if you're trying to recycle it. It's just simply not practical. But the mauve and the net wrap, I have a bit more of a grump with, because the twine, we put it through the tub grinder. It's no problem. It gets wrapped on there. We can take it off. The mauve wrap ends up coming off in pieces, and birds get tangled in it. We haven't used black net wrap on our farm for many years. 15 plus years-ish, and still get birds like chickens and stuff caught in pieces of it everywhere. Just about every year we get somebody caught in it. So not really a big fan of the net wraps and stuff. And then the silage plastic, I understand that in silage makes some of the best quality feed and of course long-term storage and stuff, but the volume of plastic that comes off of twine is just not twine, comes off of silage is just freaking ridiculous. Like ridiculous. Not Gusta. There's actually, I gave a shout out to him here a video or two ago, a guy by the name of Dallin, who's started a company in Saskatchewan to try to recycle some of these single-use plastics. He's actually found a way to make it a profitable entity, but the government of Saskatchewan and Alberta, and actually Canada period, has signed on with a nonprofit in Ontario, which is doing a pretty decent job. I will give them that. They've signed on, and pretty much all your single-use plastics must be recycled by them. All of the deposits get paid to them, and they are responsible for dealing with it. Of course, there's no fine or issue to them if they don't, but they are responsible for it, and only they're allowed to do it. And so Dallon's like, hey, can we talk? I want to try and do this. I have an idea that might make this profitable. And from what I understand, the government's like, yeah, nah, we don't want to talk with you. Go away, you're private industry. And so if you can look back on the Crackpot, you will actually find, on our Facebook page anyway, you will find a link to Dallon's his fight with the Saskatchewan government. And if you want to go and read up on that yourself and form your own opinions and be educated on that, please feel free to go and do so. Now, how did I get into that? Oh, because people asked about wrapping it. Okay, when we kick out this bale, I'll read for the next one. You'll see it's been quite a while since I have kicked a bale out, and that's because things are a little bit thinner here at the edge of the field. When we cut this field on our last broadcast, which is 9 days ago, we were about 100 yards that away when we finished. Actually, no, we were right here. We finished this piece. So we've actually, we're in the same place that we were last week. So it's kind of thin here, which is why it's taken so long to make a bale. This isn't unusual. We usually can kind of say if we can get a bale an acre on our alfalfa, we're doing half decent. We actually got almost 3 bales an acre on a piece north of my house, which is really good, but it's protected by trees and it was fertilized and a few other things that cause it to do very well. So this is just our first cut, and it was a really poor year last year to get this established. So we're actually quite happy with what we're getting out of here so far. So we wrap this bale here in a minute. I'll get caught up on comments, and maybe if we don't have any question in there, then I will get one out of my book here in front of me. So because my neck is not incredibly well lubricated and gets sore after a little while, I got 3 mirrors in the tractor. I got one right here, which is looking at the pickup so I can see what's happening in the pickup. And I got my 2 side mirrors here, each looking at their side of the baler. So I can see all of the belts on the baler. I can see both twine spools and I can see the pickup, just move my head a little bit. So when we go to wrap a bale, we got to make sure that both twine indicators are spinning, showing the twine is caught. And we got to make sure that they stop before we go, or we'll just wrap the next bale full of twine. Okay. I've been watching my gardening videos and plenty of people use it, just not sure how good it is. Oh, I'm assuming you're meaning the worm tea. What is twine? Twine is just a plastic string, really. It's about the thickness of yarn with a whole pile of really small fibers in it, and it's just plastic. I'll maybe get out and show you guys what it actually is in a bit. This company is melting down the twine and compressing into posts. Yes, I've heard about that, and I've heard mixed results on the posts because they're hard to pound a staple into and they bend in the sun, which really isn't that great of a quality if you want a post to hold something up. That said, that was a while ago. They may have made improvements. They were also expensive. Do you post these videos anywhere after the live feed? I would like to. If I get a chance, I'm going to sit down at my computer and I want to download them all off Facebook and then put them up on YouTube so that they're actually easy for people to find, because I imagine that that there might be people, if they're going on long road trips or something, or they're absolutely crazy, they will want to actually maybe watch these. So I'm going to try to find a place to put these that people can actually find them. I'm assuming you say, is it going to do you for the winter? So I'm assuming you're meaning our feed. Yes, we should be good for this winter. We try to plan our feed and our cows around how much feed we're going to have. Okay, so last time I had someone ask me a question. I did not get to it because I wrote it in notes in my phone, and I was not able to access those without killing the live feed. So someone asked me last time, and I'm sorry, I'm going to start putting names down with the questions if that's okay with people. They asked me about labeling laws, like the location of origin with some crops or products, sorry. And so I'm just going to talk about that for a little bit. As far as I know, this is mostly just a private industry thing. This isn't something that's being mandated or legislated so far, to my knowledge anyways. Some of the infrastructure is there, like all of our animals have to be sold, have an RFID tag on them so that their origin and their date of birth and stuff can be traced for BSE reasons. But I don't think that is extended yet to the actual commercial beef retail industry, that you can go to a package and see where that animal was raised or anything. There are private industries that are wanting to set that up because, of course, there are consumers with smartphones and stuff. Wouldn't it be cool if you can go to the store and, oh, there's a barcode in this package, and you scan the barcode in your phone and tell you, oh, this animal was raised by Red Wing Farms, and it was raised on this quarter section. It was born this date, and oh, here's a picture of it, and here's its name. That would be really, really cool, but I don't think any of that is really in place yet. I'm really not entirely sure of the laws surrounding those kind of things just yet, especially in other countries, but I don't think we have very much of that here. I think that it's something that should be done from the bottom up, not government legislated, because if we have people who actually say, yeah, this is something that I want to see, and the private industry steps up and goes, we can do that. I think it's going to work an awful lot better and be more beneficial to consumers and producers alike if it's done that way, as opposed to the government saying, yeah, you got to do this and fill out this paperwork and do this program the way that we designed it. That'll be all fine and dandy, right? No, it's a government program. It won't work, or won't work well. So I think it's something the private industry should pursue, and I think that they are pursuing, because a lot of consumers are saying that they want to know where their stuff comes from, they want to know how it was raised, and I think it'd actually be pretty cool. We're direct marketing a lot of our beef, not a lot, a bit of our beef, and so I'm assuming that with the amount that we're marketing, there would be people who would like to be able to see a picture of the animal, or be able to call and talk to us, or to even come out and see the farm. And if they really want to, maybe for an extra fee or something, they can literally come out and see their animal before it gets butchered. And they can follow along with their animal from the time it's, shortly after it's born till the time it goes to slaughter or whatever. I think that would be pretty cool. So a little off topic on that question, but I don't really know too much about origin labeling laws just yet. That's not something that's very common here in Canada, to my knowledge. So that's about all that I have to say about that at the moment. Okay. Yep, I can't read those right now. Little bumpy. The good news, though, is so far my homemade phone holder has not failed me. My phone has not fallen out, and I don't think you guys are shaking around very much, because my screen is fairly clear. It's not blurry and jumping. I know the camera isn't that great, but we're also doing this on an indestructible phone that was more of designed to be indestructible, with a loudspeaker and like 2-day battery and whatnot. They weren't exactly thinking that, oh, we're going to have people who are going to be doing live streams and stuff off this. We should make them with big processors and excellent cameras. Those were not factors. But I'm incredibly hard on phones, so I need one that is tough more than one that looks or works really well. I need one that's just going to survive. Okay, we're just about done this side of the field. Dad and I worked in this field together, actually. I had the 21-foot on the green swather, whose name is Dennis, and Dad had Donnie, who is an act-on with the 25-foot on the other side of the field. So when we finished this side, we were going to go over to the other side and do the stuff that Dad cut. And because he had a 25-foot swath and I have a 21, hopefully we'll be able to make bales a little bit faster. And we will easily get this wrapped up pending a breakdown, and then we'll go and work on our other 50-acre patch, which should yield fairly well as well once we get down there. Okay, I know there's a few comments that come in here. I will get to you guys in a little bit, and then I think we will. I think then we'll go and start talking about nitrogen. So I'm not sure how many have joined us since I last said it, but we're going to be talking quite a bit about, or our main focus of this live actually is going to be, we're going to talk about nitrogen. We're going to talk about why governments are going after it. We're going to talk about why we need nitrogen fertilizer in our current farming system. We're going to talk about the problems with nitrogen fertilizer in our current farming system, and the things that we can do about it, because there are solutions, because the problem's just getting worse, and it's going to keep getting worse unless we do something about it. So, but of course, governments have got the wrong idea, because that's how governments work. And so they're going about it all wrong, but yes, something does need to change. So we're going to get into that here shortly. I've actually done quite a little bit of research here to try to re-educate myself on how the whole system works, so that I can try to convey it to you in layman's terms, so that people can understand how the cycle actually works, and what our solutions are, and how we got to that point of needing it. Okay, I'm finished this side. There's a pile of comments, so we are going to stop for a second and get caught up on comments. Okay, so we have, what is twine, company posts, videos at live feed. What is it to do live? Okay, recommended putting them on YouTube. Hey, where did that go? People that don't have Facebook can watch the Facebook ones. Yes, I'm going to put them on YouTube after I download them off here. Can you put them on Telegram? I have Telegram. I don't want my cow's name when I eat him. I haven't been able to eat lobster since I named 2. Okay, that's I can understand that. I had 4-H cows and I named them, and when we had to sell them, get rid of them, I may or may not have cried. Okay, you're in New Brunswick. Awesome. We got people from all over Canada here. You apologize to fish when you catch them. Yep, I totally get that. I'm kind of the same way, except I don't fish. I hate fishing. But yeah, animals are people too in my mind, and so yeah, if like when I hit that duck last time, I just about cried putting that duck down, because of course I was the one who injured it. So okay, I don't want, because why do we keep? Here we go. Oh, why do my comments keep doing that? What's the purpose of silage bales? Are they simply an alternative to fermenting in a heap or pit? Yes. So I have a neighbor friend who actually does he does a lot of silage bales. He doesn't have a silage pit, and so it allows him to, with only one or two people, to be able to cut, bale, and then wrap all of their silage, as opposed to needing a crew to chop it, haul it, and pack it, because manpower simply isn't available, and sometimes they don't have a pit. So he finds that wrapping his silage bales in a big tube works better for him than putting it in a pit. So it's just I think it's a bit of a manpower thing. But yeah, that's definitely definitely a thing. Okay, we need farmers. Yes, yes, we do. Okay, we're gonna get over to. So, do we have any other questions besides the nitrogen one here at the moment? Okay, we had another couple of questions. One guy commented, and I think he was under the impression that he was live like 4 days later. So just if you're not watching this on Thursday, July the 21st at like what time is it? Just about 2 o'clock. You're not live, which means if you put questions in the comments, I am not answering them because I'm not there. So, anyways, the gentleman now I'm getting distracted. So he said, "What do you get paid? What kind of hours do you work, and what kind of benefits do you get?" So I promise this is the last question I'll read out of the book before we talk about nitrogen, unless, of course, you ask me more questions. So what do I get paid? Well, I'm not really going to divulge the actual number, but there are many ways that farmers can get paid and many ways to set up their corporate structures. Before I get into that, I need a drink of water because I've been babbling incessantly for a while here. I charged my phone before we started so that we wouldn't get shut down by a lack of battery power. Okay, so there are many ways that a farmer can get paid and set up their structure. So a lot of farmers nowadays are corporate entities. They're corporations because it is the best way to protect the people from the liabilities and the issues of running a business. It just makes business sense for farms, period, to be corporations. So once you're a corporation, I have several options. You can either just be an employee of that corporation and get paid a flat salary. You can just take out profit every year. You can have the farm pay all of your expenses and literally live on nothing if you want to do it that way. But the way we have it set up is the farm is a corporation. I am technically an employee of the corporation, as well as I'm not on the executive yet. Yes, there's an executive for the farm. I'm not on the executive yet, but I am a managing partner, from what I understand, in the corporation, and it's being in the process of being transferred over to me in a large capacity. And so I'm an employee of, and as such, I receive a flat salary. Now, the flat salary is actually quite low when you compare it to what I would get paid if I was doing this kind of work with this level of skill as an employee of another farm, like working for someone. If I was getting paid an hourly wage, I would probably be making 6 figures a year very easily doing what I'm currently doing. I work 3,500 to 4,500 hours a year. I'm usually working 12 plus hour days, 6 days a week, sometimes 16 or 18 hours. So I work an awful lot of hours. And so if I was making a wage, it would actually compensate me for my skills and the work that I do. I would be making a lot of money. But as it is, I don't make nearly that much money. In fact, I think that we're in the lowest income bracket, but there are some factors need to be taken into consideration here. And that is, I do not pay rent on my house. I don't pay a mortgage on my house. I don't pay utilities on my house. I don't pay my phone bill. We pay my wife's phone bill, but not mine because my phone does pretty much just farm business. We do not pay for fuel as far as our fuel tanks will take us. And we don't pay for any other fluids that go in our vehicle. I do not need to pay for use of the shop. I work my own hours, generally speaking, and I can use all farm machinery for my yard maintenance and development and what have yous. I even use farm vehicles for vacations and stuff because I sold my pickup to the farm, and so if I want to tow a trailer or something with it, I use the farm vehicles. So there's an awful lot of unpaid or non-monetary benefits that farmers can receive, and so when you stack my salary together with those, my wife and I kind of figured out that we together earn somewhere in the neighborhood of probably about 50 to 70,000 a year if you try to put a dollar figure on some of the things that we get. And so this is a relatively consistent figure. I mean, our salary is a flat salary. That doesn't really change. There are farms that if they're not doing very well, they will maybe reduce how much money they make, or they'll maybe go on a little bit of a smaller vacation or whatnot. But our salary kind of stays the same. Sometimes, well, I mean, pre-COVID anyways, we the farm credit card actually has a large air miles program on it. When you put a lot of money through a card like that, you can fly wherever the heck you please very inexpensively. So back before COVID, we all used to fly all over the place going on vacations because we could fly for free. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's kind of what I get paid. I get paid some money, but mostly non-tangible benefits, which is pretty awesome. And I went over the hours that I got paid as well, and the benefits, wrap it all up in one. Okay. You're married to the farm. You're underpaid. Yeah, yes, I am married to the farm. My work is literally in my front yard. I can't look out my front door without Lily seeing the shop, which is where I do most of my work. Am I underpaid? I don't know, because you can't buy the lifestyle, and that's really the biggest paid thing to me. Like I don't worry about personal finances at all. I only worry about farm finances. All of my basic needs are met. My wife and I live very well, as I consider it anyways. I mean, we're not, eating 5-star stuff. We're not dining 5-star. We don't drive brand new vehicles, whatnot. But I have no desire for those things either. So we're very content with the life that we have, even though we don't get a whole lot of money for it. The lifestyle that we have out here with our space and quiet and being able to sort of do what we want to every day, but also like I get to drive all this cool stuff, which is just awesome. I get to fix things, to solve problems, and I have opportunities to bless other people, like trying to do what we're doing here on the video. But also I taught 4-H for a little while, so a lot of opportunities that you don't get in the city. So even though I don't make a lot of money at it sometimes, lifestyle I think is definitely worth it. So I think that we're about caught up on questions, which means that it is time to talk about nitrogen. And my in-laws are taking my daughter out for a ride to put her to sleep. I'm not sure if they're listening or not. I'm waving to them. There they are back there. You probably saw them for half a second. Okay, we're going to talk about nitrogen. So this is what you all came here for, was to hear me talk about nitrogen. So we are going to start at the very beginning. People discovered that you could use nitrogen fertilizers in various forms to enhance crop yield. And like we're talking a couple 100 years ago, they found that the stuff that was in people manure and cattle manure and stuff was it was a nitrogen component that was making the difference. And so then they found ways to process and manufacture ammonium was the first one. And so they were able to do that somewhat cheaply, and they were able to increase yields. And so since that point, man has been working on finding better and better ways to manufacture synthetic nitrogen fertilizers in order to try to improve crop yields. Now, nitrogen is readily available in the air in various forms. It has to be converted and, of course, put in the ground in order for plants to utilize it. And so we need to convert nitrogen from one of its many forms, and I don't remember how many there are, but there's a lot of different forms of nitrogen, to another in order to be able to use it. So when we're putting nitrogen fertilizer in the ground, we start disrupting a process. And so the process in a natural organic system is there's biology in the soil that converts nitrogen from one form into another form, and then from that form to another form, and then some more biology that actually bring that nitrogen to the plant and exchange it for the sugars and photosynthates that the plant produces. So now when we add synthetic nitrogen into the soil in the plant available forms, the plant just bypasses all that biology and just pulls its nitrogen straight from the soil. So when you have that biology disrupted, you've now changed a few other things, because of course a plant needs a lot more than nitrogen. It's necessary for the construction of proteins, nucleic acids, as well as other structures in plants, is needed for a lot of things, and a plant does not have an off button for nitrogen. It will really just keep eating it until it explodes, kind of thing. So you can keep feeding a plant nitrogen to make up for other deficiencies, which is kind of what we're doing, because you can just keep feeding it nitrogen and eventually it will overcome sort of whatever deficiency or issue you're having. But when we disrupt this biological network underground, where the plant is supposed to get its nitrogen from that network, there are other nutrients that get disrupted as well. And if you don't feed that biology and give it those sugars and photosynthates, it ceases to exist, or at least function in the same capacity. And now you can't get the same level of nutrients and stuff you can out of soil. So the soil actually becomes addicted to synthetic fertilizers because you've now diminished the soil's natural capacity to feed the plants the same way you did before. The other issue when you're using nitrogen fertilizer is that your plant, because of course, like we said, it has no off button for nitrogen, so just going to keep eating it, eating it, eating it. And so if you're tired, you go, oh, I need a cup of coffee. Now that didn't give you more sleep, but it woke you up and gave you a short-term burst of energy to deal with something. And you can do that for a while, but after 24 hours, 36 hours, the caffeine thing stops working. There's simply no more jam left in order to spice up and get working. There's no more energy. You got to crash and rest. And the plant is the same way. You can give it as much drugs as you want to get it kickstarted and doing the things you want it to do, but it's not going to do it the same way. It's not good for it. It's not healthy, and it cannot maintain that long term. So now we've been doing this for many years. That we've been doing this to our plants. They've been bred this way, so they've been growing up in this system of essentially being fed drugs in order to compensate for a lack of biology and proper nutrition. Hey, thank you. She just will flip the belt on me. And so we've been dealing with this for years. We had plants that are bred to deal with this way. And so we actually are starting to see a significant decrease in the amount of nutrition in our food. We're getting higher and higher yields because that is the focus of agriculture nowadays, is more, not better. We're going for quantity over quality. And that is just feeding, our current agriculture system is feeding on that. More. We're not looking at the protein content. We're not looking at the nutritional content. We're not looking at the fact that we're growing, essentially hollow food. As it was explained to me actually when I was in college by various professors and speakers and whatnot, in 40s, 30s, 40s, an apple could almost be lunch. One apple could almost be lunch. And if I wanted lunch, I'm looking at like 2 or 3 sandwiches, a couple apples, maybe a few granola bars, and I'm still hungry by 3 because our food does not have the same nutritional quality that we used to. And this is why when you buy organic stuff, sometimes it tastes a lot better or different than some of the commercially grown stuff. This is not always the case though, because there's some loopholes in organic as well. But anyways, that is why some organic stuff is so much better than the regular commercially synthetically produced stuff, is because the soil has to be healthy enough to produce that fruit naturally. And so you have a plant that's balanced and healthier, and so therefore it produces less fruit, but the fruit may be a lot better. Now, this is not, of course, a concrete rule, but kind of a general rule of thumb. So now we've talked about why we need nitrogen fertilizers and kind of sort of what they do and a little bit of the harms, but let's get into why the governments are going after them. So the reason that governments are going after them is because they have decided, now that everybody's kind of figured out the CO2 thing, that okay, well, we're done with the carbon credits thing and people are starting to call our BS because it's way past 2013 and cities are not flooded out along the coast. And the glaciers still exist, and so we were kind of wrong on that. So okay, let's take the next one. So now they're saying that nitrous oxide emissions are hundreds of times worse than the carbon dioxide was for greenhouse gases and global warming. And so they say that nitrous oxide contributes to the formation of acid rain and to the formation of low-level ozone that we actually breathe, as well as, of course, it can be a catalyst for and react with other compounds in the air and stuff and become all kinds of problems. So the nitrous oxide in synthetic fertilizer comes from many places. The creation of synthetic nitrogen is done, it takes a lot of energy to do it. The production of nitrogen fertilizers takes like 2% of all global energy, from what I understand, in order to produce it. And a lot of that, of course, is done by combustion. So combustion gases have nitrous oxide as one of their emissions. So you have a production there of nitrous oxide. Now, of course, you need to transport it, which happens generally by diesel one way or another. And of course, that produces some nitrous oxide. And then we have it on the farms, which we put it out with machinery, which takes diesel. And then you put it in the ground. Now, funny things happen to nitrogen when you put it in the ground. It reacts with the biology down there and reacts with water and whatnot. And the best use efficiency that we really get out of nitrogen fertilizer is about 50%. So I put 100 pounds in the ground, I get about 100 pounds of that in actual plant usage. The rest either goes down or goes up. Now, I've talked about in my video, our soil has a crystal meth addiction on our YouTube channel. And I should have put that link up here because it is up here. I just have to push buttons, but I don't want to push any buttons while I'm moving. I might shut the stream off. But so there's several different ways we lose nitrogen. One of them is through leaching, which means that water carries the nitrogen away from where it currently is, generally in runoff. It generally goes across the top of the dirt, not straight down. And so then it gets into our waterways and it becomes what we call eutrophication. And if you go look in the Mississippi River Delta, there are massive, massive areas that grow nothing but algae blooms because of the amount of fertilizer that gets leached into the Mississippi River through its watershed system from all of the farming along its banks. And we actually have those problems here. We're applying fertilizer to our fields, and when we get rain and it runs off, or in spring runoff even, we're having more and more problems with algae blooms in our dugouts and our water storage facilities and whatnot because of this problem. So that's leaching and eutrophication, where water washes it away. And the other one is through denitrification and one other process I forget. There's a lot of names. I used to know all of these things back when I was in college. But the nitrogen converts to different forms and it evaporates into the air. And one of those forms is nitrous oxide. And so now you can see that we have a lot of places for nitrous oxide to be emitted from the nitrogen fertilizer process. We have the manufacture, the transport, the placement, and then we have the evaporation. So the nitrogen fertilizer, specifically nitrogen, is a very, very leaky system that you get very little return out of it. We're going to say 50%, sometimes 90% gets wasted from what's manufactured versus the usage we get out of it. So you can then understand from that, if the governments are following the science, which we all know where that leads, that you can see how they would want to go after nitrogen fertilizer. But of course, going after it by saying we're just going to reduce usage, it'll be grand, we'll go organic, it'll be fantastic, and we're going to shut down all of our farms, and we're going to become the world's least producer greenhouse gases, it'll be amazing. Of course, that doesn't work very well, because if you don't have people producing food, well, then you have people who don't eat, and people who don't eat are hungry, and people who are hungry are angry, or dead, or die angry. Either way, not good. So what we have now is across the pond, we have governments who are super tied on to the World Economic Forum and the UN 2030 agendas and whatnot of getting rid of all these emissions. And of course, secretly, but not admitting it, we've got to get rid of the world's population. We've got to centralize everything, including the food production system. And part of that is taking the land away from the farmers. And the best way to do that, because they own it, is to get them so far in debt or make farming so expensive they can't afford to, so then the government takes over the land. And so we have places like the Netherlands and Sri Lanka and whatnot that are trying to pull this stunt, and it's kind of backfiring a little bit. Hey, we have a problem. There we go. Okay, so I had a twine problem. It did not start pulling twine on the right-hand side of the baler. I was watching the wheel and it did not start spinning. So with the manual controls on the monitor here, I just extended and retracted the arm, so it just swung back and forth a bit, and it grabbed the twine and pulled it in. So now we're wrapping, and we reinitiated the automatic process. It'll take care of itself. Okay, now we got a few comments to catch up on. Okay, rather be married to the farm where my family is and have a better quality of life. Do what you love. Exactly. Okay, I meant to say most people are married to their jobs that they hate and they're away from their families. I'm sure it's so much more work running a farm, but it's great for your cause and your family is involved. Win-win. Yes, exactly. Okay, I think that's the last comment. Yeah. Okay, it seems to be. So yes, unfortunately though, a lot of farmers work even worse hours than I do, and their family doesn't see them a whole lot. And then, of course, you have marital problems from that. A lot of farmers are on their second or third marriage because they don't spend a whole lot of time with their wife. So thankfully, my wife is a little bit strong-willed, and we put boundaries and stuff on me at spring. And so I was in at a certain time at night, and I had certain duty fulfillments I need to do every day to make sure that I was going to be home for my kids and for my wife to make sure my marriage hangs together, because what the heck is the point of all this nonsense if you're not going to actually invest in those things, which are what bring you the most happiness. Because yes, I love driving tractors, but I also like being married for, well, you know, there's a multitude of reasons to go with that. So, okay, we're going back to nitrogen. Where was I? Okay, we were talking about the problems of nitrogen. We talked about governments. Yes, governments. Okay, so we know that what the governments are doing is wrong. It's not going to work. If they're wanting to centralize the food system, any government-operated program, of course, has like a 0% success rate, because you get bureaucrats involved, and bureaucrats are really good at screwing things up. And anytime there's large portions of money or power involved, people get corrupted and they try to siphon a little bit off the top for themselves, and pretty soon the whole thing is in a big shambles. Now, not to say private industry doesn't do this as well, but they're an awful lot more efficient at it than governments are. Like efficient at operating their programs, I mean, because they're in it to make a profit. Whereas governments, I mean, they have good intentions, but when you get so many people involved, the good intentions kind of get lost, and the corruption kind of starts to come to the forefront. So anyways, so governments are trying to reduce nitrogen fertilizer usage and whatnot, which is fantastic, and I think that that should be done. However, just saying, yeah, we're going to slash it, make it super expensive, you can't afford it, we're just going to go organic like that, it'll be grand, we'll still be able to feed the whole world, no problem. Nope, not going to work. 100% not going to work. We got to go about this differently. We need to repair our soil so we don't need this fertilizer anymore. That's how we have to do this. We have to stop the need. Law of supply and demand. People will find a way to supply it if there is a demand for it. So let's just reduce the demand for it and get our soil kickstarted again. We won't need the nitrogen fertilizer anymore. So that is kind of where our farm is at. We have recognized that the nitrogen cycle is broken, the water cycle is broken, the carbon cycle is broken, and that we're forever spending more and more and more money to grow our crops because our soil is doing less and less and less for us, and really is now just to the point where it just holds the plant still and kind of sort of has water in it. That's really about it. Everything else we're trying to apply to the plant. We're trying to kill all the bugs. We're trying to apply all the nutrition artificially, and in some places we can even apply the water artificially, and the land is literally just a place for the plant to stand. And we recognize that this is not a sustainable cycle, and so we're trying to find ways to make this work better. Now, when you're trying to find ways to make things work better, you're probably going to find a lot of ways that don't work first. And so we were having some struggles with trying to make things work. We went to liquid fertilizer, which strangely enough, they're trying to shut down, the government's trying to shut down the use of urea specifically because of the forms of nitrogen in it, whereas UAN, which is one of the liquid nitrogen forms, has 3 different forms of nitrogen in it, urease, ammonium nitrate, UAN, and so therefore they're not going after UAN quite as hard because it is one of the most efficient ways of utilizing nitrogen. Anhydrous ammonia, which is a gas, is the least efficient. Urea is about in the middle, and then UAN is one of the most efficient. So interesting side note there. So we went to liquid to try to get better use efficiency out of it, but also because we could do things like compost tea and whatnot with it, whereas you can't with dry. And also the salt index levels for liquids are usually a lot lower than their dry counterparts. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. We've been having some struggles with our liquid kits and making it work. And then of course, when we don't get any water out here in forms of rain, it's kind of hard to grow crops and there's no water. It doesn't matter how you apply your fertilizer, what kind you apply, they just simply don't grow well. So other ways that we can either more efficiently use our nitrogen fertilizer or get nitrogen in other forms. So there is a group of plant called legumes, and they have this really cool ability to host the rhizobium bacteria. And the rhizobium bacteria actually take nitrogen out of the air via the plant, and they put it back in the soil in a plant available form, if I understand correctly. So this is done through nodules on the plant itself. The pulse plant is the host. So a pulse plant is going to be something like a pea, a bean, lentils, alfalfa. Those are all legumes. There's a lot more than that, but those are the common ones that I would know, or that maybe my American counterparts would know, that soybeans are part of that group. And so when you properly, if you have the bacteria in the soil already, healthy bacteria, those rhizobium bacteria are present, and they will develop and multiply on the legume and start to fix nitrogen. Now, the legume itself actually brings in nitrogen and converts it to a usable form on its own, much more so than, say, a cereal or an oilseed or something, through the rhizobium bacteria. And so you don't need to put as much nitrogen with those plants to make them work. Of course, you're always going to get a result out of it. If you add drugs to something, you're going to get a result, right? And of course, nitrogen is no exception. So even with peas, for example, even though they fix their own nitrogen, if you put nitrogen fertilizer with them, they're going to react. Because if I give you a cup of coffee, even though you're awake and schooled up, give you a cup of coffee, you'll be faster, right? So same idea. So people have been inoculating their legumes. The pulse is the actual seed off it, like the actual pea seed is called the pulse, but the plant is called a legume. They've been inoculating their legumes with rhizobium bacteria in various forms for many years, us included. We used to use it as a peat. So we'd mix it with water, and then we'd put the peat on the seed as we put it into the drill. It would sit there with a little baggie and pour it onto the seed as it went into the drill to make sure that we had the bacteria, because if it's not present in the soil, you got to get it from somewhere else. And if you have unhealthy soil that's not balanced and you've been working on quashing the biology in your soil, you're not going to have it, right? So we've been inoculating to make sure that we have that rhizobium bacteria so it can do that job. Now, we've been doing that for years, and we've seen little nodules. They're pretty decent, not bad. But then when we went liquid, it now opened us up to be able to use a liquid inoculant, which is going to get on every seed, and also opened us up to be able to put compost tea seed treatment on our seed. This kind of happened at the same time. So compost tea is it is a bit of a scientific process. I understand very little about it because I have no interest in doing it myself. You can do it yourself, but it requires a little bit of knowledge and some equipment and whatnot. And so it is just simply composting various materials to get biology and fungi and whatnot to be growing, and then applying that to the seed and then putting it in the ground. So now you've given that seed a whole pile of biology to go with it when you put it in the ground. Now, maybe not all of those biology are beneficial, but if you can have a whole ecosystem of biology, they will balance themselves out, the goods and the bads. And if you can have your soil active, well, you're going to have soil doing soil things, which is providing nutrients to your plant rather than just being a place to stand it. So we started using compost tea because, well, if you're going to be crackpots and do wackadoodle things like going liquid and hoping that that's better, well, you might as well use some compost tea too. So we started using compost tea, and we add the liquid inoculant to it, and holy nodules, Batman. Usually when we cut open a nodule, which were very small, like 1/8 of an inch in diameter, maybe smaller, there'd be just the slightest little bit of tinge pink to them. Well, last year, even in the super crazy heat and crazy drought, you cut those things open, they practically bleed red. And they're like 3 times the size. There was a clump of nodules on our one plant that was like half an inch in diameter. It was huge. And even this year, I went and pulled out a poor-looking pea plant, and that sucker had 1/4-inch blobs of nodules all over it, and they were blood red inside. It's beautiful. So we're starting to make a little bit of headway. We may have found a product that's going to help us facilitate that. And so worm tea, I assume, is going to be very similar to compost tea, same kind of thing. The worms are going to poop out their poop, and the poop is going to be a host to bacteria, if not have a lot of it in it. So any way that you can foster and permit to grow any kind of volume of biology and try to get it back in the soil is going to be beneficial in one way or another, because the soil is meant to be alive. It's not meant to just be a medium that just sits there. It's not just dirt. It's not just rocks and sand. It's a living being. And so you have to care for it. You have to feed it. You have to make sure that you're not killing it every time you go to do something. And so there are many, many, many ways to kill soil and to be detrimental to it, but there's not a lot to be beneficial. So you have to really be careful with your management strategies, because one step back can take a lot of steps forward to actually gain that back. So it's hard to take big steps forward. It's easy to take really big steps back. So hopefully that explains the nitrogen thing relatively well. See if I'm missing anything. I don't think I'm missing anything. Last comment that I'm seeing is, can you mention worm tea and its benefits and why? So I think you kind of covered that there. Anytime you add biology to the soil, you're benefiting things, because we're trying to get the soil to be back to being a living thing. Because a living thing is going to have good and bad parts to it. Like the soil is going to have bad biology. It's going to have bad worms and stuff to it. But it's going to need, if it's balanced, the good can take care of the bad to a certain extent. You're not going to see the same levels of disease issues. You're not going to see the same level of pest problems if you have a balanced ecosystem, right? Because the balance means that everything exists in a perpetual state. Whereas in our monocultures, that's not the case. Nothing exists in perpetual states, and we're constantly killing bad things and inadvertently killing good things. Hopefully that kind of answers that question, but let's open the comments up. And so if you guys have any questions about that last little half-hour long ramble about the whole nitrogen situation and all the problems with it and what we can do about it, please let me know. Type your questions in the comments there, and I will try to answer them. Hopefully I covered most of the high points there. I think I missed a couple things out of my notes, but I'm also trying to drive a baler and focus on making good bales and not plug in the pickup, and focus on talking like a half-decent human being. So hopefully you did a half-decent job of that. So if you guys have any questions about the nitrogen thing, compost tea stuff, please put those up right now. How are your grow towers coming along? So the grow towers are actually in my parents' garage. That's much more of their thing than mine. So I haven't seen them in a long time. I'm pretty sure they're growing like crazy. We were getting our greens and stuff off of them for quite a while. I'm sure that we still are, but I'm not aware of that because I'm not in the kitchen a whole lot these days. So I can't exactly attest to that. I'm sorry. One day I am going to take this phone and this headset, and I'm going to find Papa Crackpot doing whatever Papa Crackpot's doing. And I'm going to be like, here, you're live. Talk to them. They want to see you. Not sure how well that will go, but I would really like to get him on here because I know there's a lot of people who have questions for him as well. How do you fight off old ladies that amazing beard? Very simple. It is 32 degrees outside, and I am not a person who likes deodorant, so that helps. Also, if you will look around me, you will see that the land is barren and void of ladies, and so that is not a problem. I was one of those guys in high school that ladies had a difficult time acknowledging my existence, which is probably a good thing. So I don't have any problem with that. It also helps that when I'm not working, I have something on this finger that says that there is a very strong-willed woman who would have issue with that and would deal with those problems. So yeah, not a problem. And I'm not a very hygienic-y, carry kind of person. My beard gets combed once a week under great duress on Sundays. And I even brush my teeth occasionally, but yeah, I'm really not all that much of a prim and proper person. So unless she's a farm lady who's probably already married, because farm girls are in very high demand, Unless she's a farm lady and kind of hard to appreciate for some people. Okay, I can't see the comments just yet here. I just spat a bale out, but okay. Oh, of course that was Chris. Of course that was Chris who asked that question. Goodness gracious, buddy. Chris is one of my good buddies from Ottawa. I may or may not have stayed in his hotel room, and I may or may not have visited him in his house, and he may or may not be coming out to visit me. Of course, it was Chris who asked that question. I should have known better. Chris, I love you, buddy. Yeah, okay, I definitely can't read now. It's bumpy. We'll have to wait till the next bale. I love it when my friends pop on and ask me silly questions like that. My wife is probably spitting her water out in the house right now, but such is life. Okay, I think I've got a, yeah, I can sort of read that. We'll read it when we get stopped here in a minute. So I think that's just about all that I have for information stuff there in my little notebook. Do we have any people on here who have been on since the Baler tour? Does anybody want to go back over the Baler tour? I don't know if I'll be bailing in a week to do this again or not. So if you want me to do a Baler tour, hit the like button because I can see those. So we get a few people hit the like button, we'll stop again and do a Baler tour. I got one. One person wants a Baler tour. Okay, we will do a Baler tour before we shut down. Okay, my kids want a ride in the tractor. Well, then we got two people want a Baler tour. If you want kids to come ride in the tractor and or the combine and you live anywhere near East Central Alberta, you need to message the Crackpot because we have visitors out actually somewhat frequently. We have some coming next week who've actually been here once already. So rides in tractors is definitely a doable thing. Okay. Okay, my kids want to ride and try you out. Okay, how do you fight up the beard if they don't? Okay, love you're very dedicated to your wife. Well, it's kind of a non-optional social convention, right? We did say till death do us part, and if one of us dies under mysterious circumstances and the track hose warm, don't ask questions. I have not taught my wife how to run the track hoe, but she very well knows how to shoot things. Okay. Any advice for others who garden with limited space? Yes, I will get there. What a wonderful why does it keep doing this? Greetings from Ottawa. Hello, Rhonda. Thank you. Baler tour. Yes, we'll do a Baler tour. Okay. So limited space gardening. Okay, so there is a thing with gardening that you got to have space between your rows and whatnot. And so I believe, and we're going to have to maybe have to ask Mrs. Crackpot. I'll be expecting a text here shortly from her. That there are people who are doing like they're called 4-square gardens or something like that. That is 4 feet by 4 feet, and in that 4 feet, you plant everything together. It takes up all of the space, but the things work together, and you can actually get a substantial amount of produce out of a very small space. So if you don't have a whole lot of space, utilize all your space. Don't worry about putting things in rows or making sure things are in nice, neat lines or anything like that. Utilize all the space that you have. Make sure you've got enough space, step in there, have some stepping stones, whatever, but utilize all the space, let the things grow together, and then you can utilize your space better that way. Don't worry about having blank spaces to weed or to walk in. Put the plants that you want everywhere. It might be difficult to get it established because if you're trying to pick weeds and you don't know what's planted where, that could be difficult. But if you can get things started elsewhere and then plant them in the garden as you go along, that might be easier. But yeah, plant everything together in a big pile. Things will get along. There are certain relationships between plants that I don't know very well. It's called a square foot gardening. Okay. There are relationships between plants that these ones like to be with these ones and these ones don't like to be with these ones. I don't know those. I'm sure there are gardening places that do know those. I do not. I don't farm those crops. But yes, don't be afraid to use up all the space. It's called seedbed utilization. And funny thing, us farmers' machines, our seedbed utilization is terrible. The current machine we have is like 12%. Our last machine was like 8%. It's bad. So utilize all of your seedbed. Utilize all the surface area. You'd be surprised what you can grow under good conditions with if you're utilizing your space very well. And there is a message from Mrs. Crackpot popped in. Perfect. As soon as we make the next bale, we will stop and read it. So Chris, if you're listening, I'm still waiting for text back from you, buddy. I sent you like 3. I see there's a few comments on here as well. So when I stop bouncing around this part of the field to wrap this bale, we'll get caught up on those. And yes, for those of you who want one, we will do a baler tour here in a bit. We get caught up on some questions, we'll shut down and go do another baler tour. Wow, an hour and a half. That's crazy. You know, this is only the fourth actual live episode I think I've ever done. Maybe it's the third. Yeah, it's the fourth. And I'm very impressed by how many people are watching. We got 42 right now. We've been as high as 75, I think, something like that. So hopefully you guys are actually enjoying this. If there's any way that you can foresee me improving this in terms of my content, please send me a message, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, comment on YouTube somewhere. Let me know how I can improve this because like I'm not in this to make money. There's no place you can donate to me or anything like that. I'm in this simply to try to reconnect with people and help people to remember that farmers are people too, and help us farmers remember that consumers are people too. So if there's any way that I can do this better and to help to reach people better, that would be fantastic. Let me know. I can't get better if somebody tells me I'm doing something wrong. So I have been 5-gallon container gardening. Now that is pretty cool. Okay, I think that's Baler Tour. Good guys, let us do. Excellent, thank you. Southern Ontario, but if I lived there, I'd do anything on a farm. There are lots of farms around there, Anna, are there not? You should be able to. I know in this part of the country, if you're a city slicker and you find a combine running in a field and you stop at the side of that field and you stand there, I bet you 9 times out of 10 that farmer will stop and let you ride the combine. Like 9 chance out of 10, you can do that. Okay, Mrs. Crackpot has messaged me a few times. Okay, so Mrs. Crackpot, because you're listening, you sent me a few, so I can only read some of them. Yes, you were spewing your tea. I can't read the rest of that. Hanging baskets and old gutters and trellises can be used to maximize space. Example, you can run peas and tomatoes up your trellis. Strawberries can live in gutters and baskets. For those wanting a farm experience, go to your local farmer's market and literally just ask for a farm tour. Yep, there we go. Good advice from Mrs. Crackpot. More greenhouses than anything. Okay. Then I'm not entirely sure how to get you an actual farm tour. I'm sorry, I don't know the area. I don't know a lot of people there. That's a long freaking ways away from here. Okay, we are going to go and do another baler tour. So for those of you who've seen this already, my apologies, but yep, we're going to go out and do a baler tour. I've taken my phone out of my super swanky homemade phone holder right there. I Zeus that up on the welding table a little while ago. So we're going to see a few things in here first, and then we're going to go out. This is the tractor. This is the shuttle, forwards and backwards. This is the baler monitor, and it tells me the bale shape. I'll show you how it knows that in a little bit. And all it really does is tell me that the bale is fully formed and that it's ready to wrap, and it automatically runs a wrapping process. And if there's problems, I can manually control the wrapping process. There's a gear shifter, 4 speeds plus a 4-speed power shift there. There are 16 forward gears. This hydraulic circuit is lifting and lowering the pickup, and this one opens and closes the end gate. And this one turns on the PTO, which is the shaft that actually runs everything on the baler. So I can see the baler very well from here. There's a few slide gauges and stuff on it that show me that things are working or how they're working. So we will open the end gate like so, and then we will go out and have a little gander about the baler. You know anything about CNC farming, i.e. computer plants in specific place, controls, water, fertilizer, etc.? That is sounding very high tech, which is definitely not in my scope of reality. I could understand and theorize, but I have no first world experience. So CNC farming, if it's using computer stuff, I'm going to assume that now we're kind of talking like a greenhouse type of environment where you have plants in a controlled area where a computer can then control the amount of heat, sunlight, water, nutrition, anything like that available to the plant can all be controlled because you obviously can't do that outside. So I'm assuming that's what it's going to be like. That, of course, would be optimum for producing maximum yield because that's the biggest parameter they would go after. I really can't speak to too much because I haven't really heard or learned very much about it. So I'm sorry, that's about all my answer is for that. Okay, we're going to do a baler tour again. I'm going to go to the upwind side because I don't like having dust in my face. But first, safety first. You're going under something that's raised like that. Put the safety in and shut the engine off. Don't need people dying on farms for no good reason. Okay. So we are beside the baler. It's yonder baler. It's been here for about 15 years. It is a Case IH baler, RBX 562. It works fairly well. They usually burn up. but because we greased this one like crazy, it hasn't started on fire yet. I mean, it started on fire, but it hasn't burned up yet. So on the side, we have a couple of slides. There's one up there, one down here. This slide here on the right tells me how big the bale is, and currently, because the gate is open, it says all the way up because that's how the geometry of the cables work. This one tells me whether the latch is open or closed for the bale chamber. This is a twine indicator when it goes to the top when it starts wrapping and just slowly moves down and tells me that it's cut. Now we're gonna take a look at we're gonna look in the chamber here. I want you guys to have a good look. This is the starter roll. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. And then we have some more rolls along the front, and then we have the massive row of belts with all the places they go around and whatnot. Remember those bale indicators I said that tells me the shape? This is how it does it. This is a potentiometer. And so the further in I push this, it reads higher or lower on the gauge inside. So when the bale starts to turn, it pushes against this little piece of steel, which actually pushes on that and tells me how much pressure there is on that particular part of the bale chamber. So I know what the bale is going to look like. Okay, so now we're going to go to an amazing hand-drawn, to-scale, perfectly accurate, amazing artistic rendering of a baler. So this is the approximate belt path. Okay, we're going to go like this. The wind is not away from me. Okay, so this is the perfect artistic rendition of the baler. I'm going to try and keep the shadow off of this. I can't see it very well, so we're going to try a few things. There we go. Okay. Put my knee on it so the wind doesn't get it. Okay, so here we have an empty baler. So remember that starter roll that I talked about earlier? This is it right down here. There's a back tire, there's a front tire, here's a pickup. It travels this direction. So hay comes in up the bottom here. It goes in between the starter and the bottom roll right here into this space. So this black line around here is the belt. And so the bale starts in this space here. And so the starter roll runs backwards, carries the full weight of the bale, and it pushes hay into this area here. It pushes against the belts and forms a bit of a circle. And so once the bale is just packed material in here until it starts to turn. And once it turns, then away I go. I can go fast and everything. But until then, I have to kind of go slow because it's kind of hard to start bales, especially when things are dry. So then that's an empty bale chamber. And so then as the bale grows, it goes round, around, around, and it takes all the slack out of these upper rollers here. You can see that the difference from here to here. All the slack comes out of the rollers and the belts go all the way around the bale like this, back down to the bottom. So the weight is riding on the starter roller. All the rollers at the front are making sure it turns, and of course the belts are turning it. So more and more stuff's coming in the bottom. As the bale rotates this way, the stuff comes in along the bottom, and the bale just keeps rolling and rolling until it gets bigger and bigger. When it gets big enough, it trips a switch, starts wrapping it. I stop moving. It wraps twine around it. We open the bale chamber. The bale rolls out the back. The belt tension comes back down to here, and we start all over again. And so that's the very basics of how a round baler works. I have missed a couple of rollers in my diagram, but that gives you just the idea. I need two arms to open this here. So this is underneath the wall of the baler. We'll open the twine box here. Not really a lot to see. There is the switch we can actually adjust the bale shape with. This is the micro switch that actually triggers the alarm in the cab and starts the wrapping process. This is the actuator that runs the twine arms. So the twine arms, down here in the dust. Here is the twine arm. Oh yeah, lovely, right in my face. This is the twine arm here. The twine is currently stuck in the knife. And so the arm swings down into the middle. Remember, that's the starter roller back there and one of the upper rollers. And so the twine comes in between, and the tail hanging out just a couple inches, and the bale pulls on the twine, wraps the twine, the arm slowly moves from side to side, brings the twine back into the knife. There is, got some in my mouth there. There's twine on each side, so it wraps one half of the bale on each side just for speed. So there's two knives. So this is the twine wheel I was talking about. Has a little black circle on it right there. So when this is spinning around, it spins kind of about that fast. I can see it from the cab to make sure that it's actually spinning. If it's not spinning, it's not pulling twine. So we can hold 3 bales of twine in here. Each one's 28,000 feet long. And we can do anywhere from about 80 to 150 bales on a full set of twine like this, depending on how many wraps we put on. So we'll latch that back up. We currently have just about 79 bales on this field so far. So actually doing pretty good. We're hoping to hit 140. Not sure if we'll get quite that far, but we should hit 100. This is the kicker on the baler. It makes sure that the bale doesn't get in the way of the end gate closing onto it. So it's not super strong. Like I can actually push it down right down to the ground, but it just makes sure once the bale's off of it, the bale cannot roll back into the baler. So that is the basics of a tour of a baler. Take the safety off again here. So yeah, there's not really a whole lot to them except for bearings and those are the biggest problem on balers because there's quite a lot of them. So we've actually had this baler start on fire on us twice. Well, I've had it start on fire twice. My dad's had it more than that even, I think. And both times I was able to use the water fire extinguisher, which is hanging out right here, nice and convenient, to put those fires out and make sure I save the baler. If the baler were to actually start on fire to the point that I cannot save it, my goal is to get the hitch pin out. If I can get the hitch pin out, all of these other things are less strong than the weight of the baler, and so when I drive the tractor ahead to save it from the fire, those things will just unhook themselves, and we'll figure that out later. But yeah, if the baler starts on fire, I will just try to get that pin out, unhook the baler, and make sure I can save the tractor. There was a time we had a tractor on here that Dad said if it started on fire, he would leave his phone in the cab and walk very slowly to the nearest yard and just hope that it took both of them. But not that way anymore. We really like this tractor. Okay, we're back in. Let's get the air conditioning fired up again. Get you guys back in my swanky cell phone holder. Okay. Comments. Go back to June. Love armchair farming. If I can't farm, it's next best thing. Very therapeutic, soothing, and informative. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying this. If you don't play Farming Simulator, though, as a farmer, are you really even farming? Okay, I know in our area, why is doing this? We had a lot of balers catch fire. You ever have any close calls? Yes, we've had lots of close calls. I could just went over that. These balers actually are prone, the stuffers on the bottom of them. Turn around here. Hello. This is strange. Doesn't want to turn the camera around for me. It's weird. There we go. The stuffers on the bottom, which are at the very back of the pickup. The stuffers on these balers are kind of prone to starting on fire, especially if you don't grease them regularly. They're supposed to be greased, I think the book says every 10 hours or something like that. But we grease them and the CV joint on the front of the drive shaft every about 4 hours, and we over grease them. And so far, I think we have the only RBX 562 that hasn't caught fire yet. Like not from the stuffers, I mean, and burned to the ground. So doing fairly good in that way. Okay, I think I'm caught up on comments. Perfect. I'm going to take another drink because I'm thirsty. Okay. Do we have any other questions? The nitrogen cycle that we went over, well, not cycle, sorry, but we talked about the nitrogen issue. Do we have any questions on the nitrogen issue? Do we have any other random general questions for me? We just did the baler tour, of course, so hopefully everybody who's here caught that. So yeah, any other general questions that we have? Questions about nitrogen, things that you maybe want to see next time? We might still be baling next time, I'm not sure. So if you don't have questions for me right now, that's fine. Send them to me in the comments or on Telegram or what have yous later. I went back into my Instagram page. So if you do have Instagram and you haven't followed the Crackpot, go ahead and do that. I think I will probably I'll post pictures and stuff there a little more often than I do on Facebook. So if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. It'll also give you another ability to send me messages there. So if you want to get questions answered for the next show, maybe you're watching this later after it's been finished, please feel free to send those questions to me in any way, shape, or form that you can find. We are on several platforms, including Telegram. You can find us under the same name. And feel free to send those questions to me, and I will do my best to get them answered the next time. So I haven't seen any questions here for a few minutes. We'll maybe give it just a couple more minutes to see if anybody else says anything. Maybe I haven't got it. No, I'm caught up on comments theoretically. So yeah, if we haven't got any more questions here in a couple minutes, I think we'll shut this down and we'll do it again next week. I'm going to try to keep doing this Tuesday at 1 o'clock-ish. Seems to work fairly well because my Mondays are unpredictable, but my Tuesdays are slightly more predictable in the chaos that is life. But if there are times that will work better for you, if there are people who are not able to watch this because of the time of day I put it at, I mean, I know evenings would be better, but unfortunately I can't reliably do that because I'm often eating supper or taking care of kiddos because I'm a father. So if there's times that might work better that I could change a little bit, let me know, but we'll try to keep doing this on Tuesdays. And as was asked earlier, I'm going to try and get a chance to take these off Facebook, download them, and upload them on YouTube where they can be found a little bit easier. And that way people who can find them and listen to them later if they're so wackadoodle that they want to listen to me yammer on for an hour and a half without being able to tell me what to say. So haven't got any more questions here, so I think that we're going to wrap this up here in a minute. Thank everybody for listening and participating and asking questions. Of course, there wouldn't be much to talk about if you guys didn't ask questions. I don't know what to tell you if you don't ask. So, yep, send me questions for next time, and I will hopefully see you guys all, or at least most of you, or some of you, whatever, next week, Tuesday at about 1 o'clock. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.